government of Israel needs to understand that this is the beginning of a process that must give the Palestinians some ability to decide how to run their own lives. Putin's got all these oil tankers that are breaking the sanctions. Sink them. Leaving the ECHR I think it's a good thing to do. I love ChatGPT. I love it. ChatGPT is fantastic. I love AI. Do you use AI?
Hi, I'm Michal Prendergast for Arabiya English here in London for a special interview with former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We discuss the Israel-Gaza peace deal, President Trump's role in proceedings. We also talk about Keir Starmer's leadership in the UK, the rise of reform and Nigel Farage, and whether Boris sees a return to frontline politics in the future. Mr. Johnson, thanks so much for your time. I'd like to start off with the news story that has dominated the world over the past 2 years, and that's the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Trump has said the war is over. What is your assessment of Trump's role in the conflict?
Well, I think it's an astonishing piece of good news. And today, as we're talking, Michal, I think the hostages are coming out or have come out. I don't know how many are out now, but last time I looked, I think about 14 of them, of the remaining 20, were out. And I think it must be a moment of great joy and relief for people in Israel, but also for people in Gaza, because it means an end to the horrifying bombardments. It means we're on the road to peace. And this is a very unfashionable thing to say in London or in Europe or wherever in liberal circles, but I really pay credit to Donald Trump. I give him credit. I think he has worked unbelievably hard. He's exerted American pressure obviously on Hamas, because he said to them, look, if you don't sign this thing, you're going to get wiped out. But also, he's put the hard word on Bibi Netanyahu. And, because it wasn't easy for Netanyahu, because he's got these guys in his coalition, the ultra right-wing nationalists, who don't support the agreement. But Netanyahu has had the courage to go ahead and do a deal anyway. So it's a very, very hopeful moment. It's not the end of the story, of course not. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of what will be a tortuous process, and there's lots of difficult points that need to be agreed. And the most difficult, Hamas need to come to the understanding that really and truly it's over for them as an armed group. It's over for them in the government of Gaza, but they get an amnesty. They get peace. They're not going to be pursued. They're not going to be killed. That's it. They are able to live out their lives. And Israel needs to understand, and the government of Israel needs to understand that this is the beginning of a process that must give the Palestinians some ability to decide how to run their own lives.
A Hamas official has recently thanked Donald Trump for his role, but they have downplayed the role of Tony Blair, saying he's not welcome. What is your take on that assessment?
I understand that Hamas don't want a role for Tony in the government of Gaza, in the Peace Council. I think it's called the Council for Peace in Gaza. I've seen that. Look, I think that that's not the end of the world. Tony Blair's a grown-up. He's actually, I think, to be fair, he has worked very hard on this deal, and he should get a lot of praise for helping to put it together, Tony Blair. I don't think it's the end of the world if he's not there in the Peace Council, but there needs to be somebody, right? There needs to be some structure that can help deliver confidence to people in Gaza that it's going to be a stable, secure environment where they can bring up their kids, they can have homes, there'll be job opportunities. there needs to be some sort of governance system that's very positive now about Gaza, and that isn't Hamas. And so you need something.
Obviously, there's been an enormous amount of speculation online around the Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think that Donald Trump deserves it?
I do, and I think that he has applied the force of his personality and the power of his office to move mountains and to get this thing done. I don't know if you've ever met him, but you can see what you see is what you get. The great thing about Donald Trump is his public persona and his real political persona are completely united. They are the same thing. He's very lucky. He speaks from the heart, and it's unmediated by calculation. He just says it, and he's very effective. And he obviously worked to get this thing done, and others as well, Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio, and I think a lot of people played an important part in this. But the Nobel Prize will. He didn't get it this year, and it's not. I think.
Will he get it next year?
Here's how he can make it absolutely nailed on. Okay, so the Norwegians are maybe a bit sniffy. The Norwegian Nobel Prize Committee will maybe a bit reserved about giving it to him when.
With gritted teeth?
Well, I think the trouble is that there's been such a big public campaign. They're not used to that. They're not used to people sort of asking for it. They're used to having the pleasure of giving it. So I think the way for, and don't forget that these guys won't be naturally Trump supporters. These people on this committee, they tend to give the prize to left liberal people, one kind or another. But the way to make this thing nailed on for Trump, he can win the prize, several Nobel Prizes for peace, if he applies to Vladimir Putin the same pressure that he's put on Hamas. He needs to step up the pressure on Putin, and and we all do. We've got to. The war in Gaza has been terrible, but the war in Ukraine has killed exponentially more people.
We will come on to that later.
Yes, forgive me. But that's my tip for how the president can win the prize. Nailed on.
And what about Tony Blair? Is he deserving of the accolade?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not close enough to the whole thing to know. My feeling is that the Americans have been decisive in this. Because in the end, look, America calls the shots with Israel because America is the ultimate financial backer of Israel's defense. And I think when the guys in Hamas looked at, what Trump was supporting, he'd come in with Israel to bomb all those Iranian facilities. They looked at what had happened to Hezbollah. I think that they thought this guy's serious. So when he says he's going to wipe us out, they believed it. And so for that reason, I think that that's where the prize belongs. It belongs with the Americans, and with Trump. Definitely. And this is going to shock. Do you see it? You're in central London now. We're in central London. I don't see any kids out on the streets of central London demonstrating, support for Trump or joy at the end of the Gaza conflict. I mean, they were demonstrating every day.
Why is that?
They were demonstrating every day when it was on, but now that it's over, they're curiously silent.
Why
is there no jubilation? Why aren't they out there saying, "Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Trump"? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Trump is a good. I'll tell you why. Because they're all lefties, and because Trump is somebody that they disapprove of, and that's the reason. And Trump is not politically correct, and I'm afraid that's the problem. So, and also, you know what? It had got to the stage where these demonstrations, and they're still going on against Israel, they're not about Gaza, they're not about the suffering of the Palestinian people, which they should be. They're about hatred of Israel, and they've become partly to do with hatred of Jewish people, and it's been very ugly to watch, very, very ugly. But now that's over, I hope.
The UK under Keir Starmer has recently recognised the state of Palestine. This is a step you chose not to take while in power. What do you think of Keir Starmer's decision?
I think it's completely vacuous. I think it's trivial. I think it wouldn't, you know, it made no difference. It didn't give the Palestinians anything worthwhile. It didn't give the people growing up in Gaza anything worthwhile. You know, recognition of a state should only really happen under the terms of the Montevideo Convention of 1933, which we sign up to in Britain. When you know the boundaries of the entity, you know and you know that you have a secure government and a recognised system of government, and you don't have either of those in the case of Palestine. So it was premature. I mean, it should happen eventually, but it's premature now and has achieved nothing.
Bridget Phillipson, the UK Education Secretary, has said the UK has played a pivotal role in securing the peace deal. Mike Huckabee, the American ambassador to Israel, has said she is delusional. What's your take?
Well, I think Mike Huckabee is almost certainly right there. I don't think that the Labour government had any purchase on the matter, you know, because they'd lost all their credit with Israel. You know, Britain has been a long-standing ally and supporter of Israel, but you know, the UK, sadly under Labour, had taken a different policy, had sided with you know, had allowed these very obnoxious protests to take place in London, had taken steps to stop supporting Israel financially, militarily, and so we had no purchase with Israel, but we didn't have any influence with Hamas either. I don't think, not that I know of. So you know, the UK had not a lot to say, but which is strange really, because the UK, you know, we were the origins of the problem. I mean, if you look at the mandate that we had for
the Balfour Declaration,
well, all that, yes, we fulfilled one half of the Balfour Declaration, but not the other half.
Given the scale,
we created a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine, but we didn't do anything to protect the rights, or not enough to protect the rights and aspirations of the Palestinian people. And I hope that what's going to happen now is that we will finally sort out that second objective. And the great thing about what Trump has done is that the surrounding Arab states are now going to be involved in that process. So it's immensely positive.
Given the scale of the casualties in Gaza, are the ICC justified in pursuing Benjamin Netanyahu for a criminal trial?
I don't think so. I really don't, and I'll be very candid with you. I think that any Prime Minister of Israel would have had to do something to stop an attack like October the 7th happening again. You know, suppose it had happened in the UK, right? Suppose we'd had pro rata, with a population of 60 million and 69 million, whatever we are, that would have been 8,000 or 9,000 people, men, women and children being tortured, killed, raped, whatever. With their screams all over British news day after day, hundreds of hostages taken. Imagine what the House of Commons is going to do in those circumstances. Imagine what the British Parliament would do. Would they allow that to happen? Would they allow the organisation that did that to stay in power? No way. No way. He had to do something. And so, no, I don't think that the ICC is right. You know, I think it's a political gesture. Again, it achieves nothing. The Americans don't even recognize the ICC, as far as I know. They don't even recognize its jurisdiction.
I'd like to get your thoughts on the UK's role in the rebuild of Gaza.
I hope that the UK will play a big role in rebuilding Gaza, and I hope that there will be, whether Tony Blair is there or not, that there's got to be some way of giving confidence to investors in Gaza, and there will be. I mean, it's got to be a Palestinian-run place, but without Hamas, and we've got to help that happen, and we've got to help trigger business investment. That's the best solution. I'll tell you a terrible, in 2005, when all the Israeli settlers were pulled out, right, of Gaza, what happened was that a lot of aid money went in, quite rightly, and lots of businesses were set up, and lots of and some leisure facilities, right, like cafes and places where you could ride ponies and stuff. And there was a place called Crazy Water Park they set up in Gaza. And maybe our viewers can check this out if I've got this wrong, because I might have got this wrong, but this is what I was told. Crazy Water Park. And it was one of those places where you can go. I've got lots of little kids, and I've got lots of kids, but have you ever been to a water park with the slides and stuff? And you go and you get stuck in the slides. Sometimes it's very humiliating, but you plop into these pools. It's great fun. Okay, people go to these things. They love them. You take your family. They built one in Gaza, but Hamas, he freaked out because the women were going around without their headscarves on, and they were smoking in a public place. The women and there were men and women in bathing costumes. Well, of course you're going to be in a bathing costume. It's called Crazy Water Park, right? You're not going to wear a suit. It's ridiculous. But Hamas, in I think 2010, it had been running for a year or so. They came in the middle of the night, 40 guys in balaclava, in masks. They burnt down Crazy Water Park, right? Because it was religiously offensive. I mean, honestly, give me a break. Whoever is running Gaza has got to be, I mean, yes, you must be sensitive to people's religious feelings. Of course. But you've also got to have a bit of realism and compassion for the human race. We want to have fun. People want to take their families to Crazy Water Park, right? I'm pro Crazy Water Park. I'm anti-Hamas. That is my position. And I want the government of Gaza to be like that. And I think it can be. And I think it can be, I really believe that it can be a wonderful, but it'll be an Arab solution. It's got to be a Palestinian solution, but with help and with help
without Hamas.
But without Hamas, without the the factional fighting, the zealotry, the ruthlessness, the cruelty. We need to move on.
Moving on to UK politics now. What has been your assessment of Keir Starmer's premiership?
You seriously asking me this question? He was my opponent. He's terrible. I mean, he's making it. Look, I mean, Britain's a wonderful country, okay? And nothing I say should in any way prejudice people's desire to come to London, have a wonderful time. I used to be mayor of the city for 8 years, as well as prime minister. It's a wonderful country. And it's a great place to be. But it's sad at the moment because Starmer doesn't know what to do. And he's making huge economic mistakes. He's taking too much in tax from businesses. He's driving people overseas. I mean, well, I haven't seen this since the 1970s. When I was a kid, people were fleeing in the 70s under Labour. People were fleeing London. You remember? Well, you're far too young. You see, it's tragic. And now it's happening again. I haven't seen it. We haven't seen this for 50 years. People leaving the country because of a Labour government.
And him as a leader,
Well,
you
I
spent a
think
lot of time at the dispatch box. You argued with
he's a
him
human
intensely.
bollard. He's just like a, he's a lot, you know what? He pretends to be very much holier than thou. You know, he pretends to be righteous, but he took all these free suits, free spectacles. Imagine that, £8,000 spectacles he took from some Labour donor. It was a scandal. Free shoes, free everything, ridiculous, and he gets pushed around. So I don't like what's happening with this China stuff. I'm not, I'm not a Sinophobe, right? China's an amazing country. It's very important. China's a part of our lives. Every country. Saudi Arabia, every country has important business relations with China, and so does the UK. But you don't let China push you around. And then we did this thing, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a couple of parliamentary researchers were accused of spying. And they've been, the case against them has been dropped. It looks like pressure from China. And we did this, I don't know if you saw it, we did this terrible deal on the Chagos Islands. Did you see this thing? We didn't sell the Chagos Islands. We gave them away, and we spent like £37 billion over the next 40 years or so, whatever. But it's a huge sum of money to expiate our guilt for having owned them in the first place. It's just mad. Why did we do this? It's completely incomprehensible unless you think that China has been pushing behind the scenes, because China and Mauritius are very close.
Do you see China?
So China has been, and so it's very weak of Starmer to give in to this kind of pressure. Very, very weak.
Do you see China as a real threat to the UK?
Well, I think it's very, very important to have a balanced approach. And as I said, China is a massively important economic partner. We sell lots of stuff to China. We have a certain amount of Chinese investment in the UK. That's great. But what you don't want is to be in a position where China calls the shots. No way. And so when it comes to British nuclear power or British 5G mobile telephony or whatever, you can't have China running it.
Labour were very critical of your government scandals, yet Angela Rayner has had to resign over questionable tax dealings. What is your take on that, and is this hypocrisy?
Well, I think as I said to you before, I think there are a bunch of hypocrites, but worse, because a lot of the things they do are far, far worse than anything that happened in my government. So it's just weird. It's very peculiar. But the worst thing is their economic policies, and they're not showing the kind of leadership that the country needs at the moment.
Do they need a new leader? Andy Burnham is waiting in the wings.
There might be somebody even worse than Starmer.
Andy Burnham, what's your take on him?
Nice chap. He kind of looks like he's wearing mascara the whole time. You notice he's a very nice guy. He's all right. I always got on very well with Andy. I think being a mayor of Manchester suits him, and he's good campaigner for his own city. That's a very important thing. I don't know whether he would be an improvement on Starmer. I can't comment on that. I think the risk of changing Starmer is you might get something worse. Really, Starmer is pretty bad. What we have to do, the international markets have got to say make it clear to Rachel Reeves and Starmer, look, Britain is a great economy. You've got to curb public spending. You've got to curb welfare. You've got to get the budget back in order. But you can't keep putting up taxes and driving business away, because then you won't get any growth, and then they're in a doom loop now because of what they did in 2024. They put up taxes so much that business lost confidence and growth died, and so the tax revenues fell so much that they haven't got enough to pay for their commitments to the doctors, the nurses, to all the public sector. So the only thing they can do is what they say it's November. It's next month, November the 26th. They're going to come back to the public and say we need more tax, which is going to be a vicious circle, and they're going to send the doom loop spiraling down. Do you see what I mean? So they need to get out of that doom loop, out of that nightmare, and into a virtuous circle of encouraging investment, encouraging productivity growth, moving people out of the state sector into the private sector. I mean, one thing that really encourages me is AI. I love AI. Do you use AI?
Absolutely.
Do you use ChatGPT? Do you love ChatGPT? I love ChatGPT. I love it. ChatGPT is fantastic. It's so nice. ChatGPT.
What do you use it for? What do you use it for?
Well, I'm writing various books, and but I just use it. I just ask questions. You know that the answer, but ChatGPT always says, "Oh, your question's so clever. You're brilliant. You're excellent. You have such insight," and I love it. And it's so, and I think I see great promise in this technology because, we're all simple human beings. Looking after the elderly costs an absolute fortune. Looking after the people with disabilities, everything, the welfare thing. If you have automated systems that can engage with people and say, "Oh, Mrs. Miggins, it's time for your pill. You need to do this. Do you need any help with your shopping? I can get you somebody." Suddenly you're going to be able to bring the costs down of the welfare system. You're going to bring the cost down of the healthcare system, and look at something like HS2. HS2, which is the big railway, which we had to cancel. The disaster. We were it's now only going to Birmingham. We've already got a train to Birmingham. We don't need to have another huge high-speed train to Birmingham. We need to go to Manchester. We need to go all the way up the country.
Is this not a bipartisan? Yeah.
No. Let me just finish my point because it's an original point. If HS2 costs £100 billion, right? 100 billion roughly to build this high-speed railway. Most of the cost of that is going on lawyers and environmental impact assessments and planning applications and all sorts of stuff that is not actually digging tunnels or putting railway lines or building trains. It's all about legal nonsense, most of it, like 50% at least. So much of that can be done by AI. You don't need this stuff anymore. You can massively accelerate the legal processes. So what I'm saying is, the UK should be. We are the world leader in AI. One of the world leaders. I mean, we have fantastic. We should be using that lead to cut the cost of government. And if you cut the cost of government, then you can put that money back into the pockets of people and stimulate growth. And that's the way to get out of or one of the ways to get out of the doom loop.
Regarding tax, it was Margaret Thatcher who said that this is her 100th birthday today. She said, the problem with socialists is they eventually run out of other people's money. Is that still the case today?
Yes. I mean, they're getting, well, I mean, as I say, it's a great country. Don't worry, always invest in Britain. But, they're getting to this. So long-term government gilt yields, so that's the cost of borrowing for Britain, is the highest it's been for 30 years. And that means that so the markets are saying, we doubt more than we did your ability to pay us. And that's bad. Britain's never defaulted in all of our, the 1,000-year history.
What would Thatcher make of the UK now?
I think she'd think some things were pretty amazing, and I think she'd be disappointed with others. I think there's a lack of There's a lack of conviction, and there's a lack of self-belief. And we've kind of got into a sort of moral confusion about some things, you know.
Such as?
Well, such as Ukraine, you know, where some people don't see how. It's kind of like back in the 80s when you had some people defending the Soviet Union, and some people now actually defend Putin, and it's crazy.
Staying with UK politics and moving on to Reform UK and Nigel Farage, they're soaring in the polls. What do you make of them?
I think that there's I would say that my own party, the Conservative Party, should be the natural beneficiary of Labour's unpopularity. We should be doing much, much better. I think, you know, honestly, this won't surprise your viewers, and I'm going to be, you've got to forgive me, but I think we had a huge, I was elected with a huge mandate with 44% of the vote. I had 44% of the vote in, which is a record, you know, as high as it's been for 4 years, in 2019. And I think it was a mistake for us to change horses when we did, and then we lost big time in 24, and we just haven't recovered our forward momentum.
Do you think it's just desserts after they ousted you?
I think Kemi is doing a very good job, and she's excellent. But I think there's a lot of disenchantment. I think the voters are very cheesed off. They think the Tories just descended into factional squabbling. Labour's hopeless. Let's try these new guys. Now, I think the problem with the new guys is that, well, I mean, there are lots of problems with them, you know. I think their economic prospectus is no good, and I think they're not much good on Russia, Ukraine either.
Do you think Nigel Farage could become the Prime Minister of the UK?
I mean, I know there's such speculation. I think it's unlikely. I think he has a very big hill to climb to get there. It's clear that the best bet is for the Tory party. It's a long way to go till the election, sadly. I mean, because we should try and get rid of Labour as fast as possible. But the best bet is for the Tory party to get their act together and recover. Kemi's very good. She gave a great speech at the party conference.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good. All about helping young people to buy their own home. Brilliant. That's what we want. Young people feel cut out of things because they can't get property. Tories help them. Tories win when we help young people get property.
David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary of the UK, he called Nigel Farage a fascist. Is that fair?
Look, I mean, I think that there's far too much sort of pointless name calling in. I don't know what they mean by that. I don't see that. What I do see is too much of Putin apologizing for Putin, and an unclear economic strategy. I also worry that, you know, I'm not certain what the real agenda is for the UK. What's the growth agenda? I don't see it. You need a growth agenda. You need to do some of the things I was talking about. You need to be cutting spending. You need to be cutting taxes. You need to be stimulating investment, using technology. That's what we should be doing.
And across Europe, is uncontrolled illegal migration, is that driving the political zeitgeist? Is it driving it to the right?
Yes, but thankfully in the UK, we took back control of full legal control of immigration. So when I was prime, one of the first things that I did when I was prime, 2019, 2020, we had this huge battle to come out of the EU. And the rules of the EU say that if you want to come from another EU country into Britain, you can. And not only that, but you can have a job, you can do whatever you want, you can get benefits. That's what the EU says. And so that meant 450 million people could come to the UK with nothing to stop them. So we took back control of our borders, in the sense that if we want to, we can have zero legal immigration. Zero. You say, no, sorry. You want to come to the UK? No. The more difficult, the thing that really annoys people is the sight of illegal immigration. And that is a real nightmare, because you've got people crossing the channel illegally and coming to the country, and that needs to end. And we had a brilliant plan to do that when I was Prime Minister. We were going to, so just before I sadly left office, we had a plan called the Rwanda Plan, which was basically these guys were going to arrive in their boats across the channel from France and find that Kent was twinned with Kigali, and we were going to hit them, like before they even got to, find their way to the accommodation. They would be back to Africa, Central West Africa.
What stopped that plan?
Lawyers for too long. But there's no reason why it shouldn't work. And I think one of the mistakes we made was not waiting until we'd got it working before calling the election. But I was out of office then. But we should have. That was the thing. It's a brilliant idea, and as soon as people started hearing about it in the camps in Calais, they started thinking, "Oh my God!" and they stopped coming in such numbers.
Reform and Nigel Farage are suggesting that the UK should leave the European Commission on Human Rights, the ECHR. What's your opinion on that?
It's not the only thing. It's not a silver bullet. Leaving the ECHR I think it's a good thing to do, a respectable thing to do now, but it's not the only thing you need to do. I mean, there are various things you need to do.
The UK must leave it.
It should do, yeah. I mean, it's because it's become a very different beast from what it was. It's now, it's Strasbourg. The Strasbourg court is much more adventurous in trying to, and much more political than it was 30 years ago. So yes, get out of that. But then there are various. I think we've more or less got it. So the problem we had with Rwanda was that the left-wing lawyers all said, well, you can't send people to Rwanda because Rwanda is a frightening place where they had a genocide in recent memory, and what if their human rights of people are abused in Rwanda? So we had to show laboriously that wasn't true, and that Rwanda was. It's true now. Rwanda is actually a very well-run country, and it was still, but because of the courts continually finding small objections, just trivial things about. I can't even remember what it was. We had to pass a law, which was basically the Rwanda is safe law. And it said, Rwanda, great place, in the view of the British Parliament. And so that trumped the judicial objections.
Did you visit Rwanda?
Yeah, I have done, yeah. Have you been there?
No.
It's great. It's unbelievably clean. I think you probably get severely punished for dropping chewing gum in the street quite properly, but it's beautiful.
Could quitting the ECHR that will interfere with the Good Friday Agreement? Do you think that leaving the ECHR will push towards Irish reunification?
Oh, I don't think so. No, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that follows at all. I think that there's been a Northern Ireland has been part of the United Kingdom since before the Convention on Human Rights, before the ECHR, before I think things will go on.
And of course,
as long as that's the will.
Yes, of course, in the Good Friday Agreement it says there has to be identical levels of laws, both economically and socially. Hence, leaving the ECHR, it may and it will cause issues within the Good Friday Agreement. I
think that what we would say is that people's rights were going to be protected in the UK, whatever happened in all parts of the UK, and that people in Northern Ireland would not be in any way disadvantaged by comparison with people in the rest of the island of Ireland. So, you know, people in this country really do have their rights protected. I don't think that the ECHR makes any difference, and I think it'd be pretty easy to show that. I mean, the convention is written into British law anyway.
Moving on to the Conservatives now, your own party. We just had the Conservative Party conference. Kemi Badenoch, she spoke passionately. What did you make of her performance?
Outstanding. I told you already. I think she had a great conference, great announcement of the cut in stamp duty, something for everybody who is hoping to buy a home. Stamp duty is a terrible tax, freezing up the property market. Great news.
A rather simple question now. Do you miss frontline politics, and how are you filling your days now?
I'm very, very happy. I mean, I'm very honoured to come on your show, obviously, but I'm very happy. I got a lot on my plate. I got 4 children of 5 and under. I've got, you know, it's a lot of work. You know, I've got to try and pay for my wife's kitchen. I've got to do all sorts. This is a full-time job. I'm writing a lot. I'm drawing and painting and doing. I've got lots of stuff to do. So I'm very happy. I'm frustrated by the way Labour is taking things. So I want the Tories to come back.
President Trump made a miraculous return to politics, as did Winston Churchill, who is one of your great idols.
Yes.
I'm not a betting man, Boris, but I would say it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we shall see you kind of back in frontline politics.
Well, look, I mean, I think I've compared it before to being reincarnated as an olive, or, you know, it's about as likely, or being blinded by a champagne cork. You know, it is statistically possible. You can get, or lost, or locked in a disused fridge. Or,
not impossible.
It's statistically, I mean, you know, anything can happen. But water can flow uphill. You know, but it's unlikely. It's unlikely. I got to, you know, I'm looking at. I want my party to come back and to get organised. That's the best solution.
And if it continues to go in the opposite direction, would you feel duty bound?
It will. I think it'll. I think. You know what I think? The idea. I think the people will be so they will get their act together.
You've won every election as well that you've ever fought. So is it a case that if you're called for, you wouldn't come back?
I think that the Tory party would be much. They will recover of their own. They've got lots of talent. They've got ideas now. They're being grown up about their policies. We need the reform. This great bubble. It's like a pumpkin or a squash or gourd, one of those things that has been inflated with drips of water for a prize for a marrow. Have you ever seen that? When maybe my grandmother used to grow prize marrows and squashes and things, and they were always filled with water, so they exploded. That's what's going to happen to reforms. It's going to blow up.
With the Tories down, Labour are wobbling, Reform are rising. Do you rule out a coalition between the Conservatives and Reform?
Well, neither of them seem to want such an arrangement. So if there is, it's it's one of those romances that is taking a long time to get going.
Moving on to free speech in the UK, there's been growing concern about the restrictions on free speech. We've seen the Irish comedian Graham Linehan, or the writer of Father Ted. He was arrested at Heathrow by 5 officers for tweets regarding the trans community. I saw that. He's the guy who wrote Father Ted. Yeah, look, I think this whole thing's gone a bit crazy. I mean, 20 years ago, this thing didn't even exist. This whole trans thing. Nobody told us that this was. I don't remember any discussion of this. And now you can't say anything that's, offensive. Offensive. I think everybody just needs to calm down. And I think, yes, people should be polite, but people should also grow a bit of a thicker skin.
You know, there's too much policing of tweets. But what we mustn't do is start to say that things like the Father Ted guy being persecuted for his tweets, it's not as bad. It's not the same as what's happening in Russia. It's not the same as what's happening in China. I mean, Russia, you literally have journalists shot. You have thousands and thousands of people locked up. If you're an opponent of Putin, you get poisoned or you get sent to a concentration camp. That doesn't happen in Britain, right? And so we've got to a stage where we're sort of making a false equivalence between ourselves and other countries, and that's rubbish. That's rubbish.
Elon Musk is very vocal on this matter. He has tweeted out numerous times in regards to the UK, make 1984 fiction again. What do you think of his sentiments and what do you think of Elon Musk?
He's a brilliant guy. I mean, I know him a bit, and I've talked to him. He's an absolutely brilliant guy, amazing guy. And you know, there's a point. What he says about and what people say about free speech is correct. There is an issue, and we have to be vigilant in support of free speech. And you know, people should not be jailed for one single tweet that they delete almost immediately. But you can't compare that with North Korea, where if you say something that the regime doesn't like, you get strapped in front of an anti-aircraft gun and blown to smithereens. You know, that's different, right? So let's keep the moral difference.
And just staying with Elon Musk, do you think he was perhaps caught off guard? He didn't expect the political backlash he received for coming out and supporting Trump in the way he did, or entering frontline politics.
He obviously believed in it. I think he tried his best with Doge, but I think sometimes business people do find politics quite frustrating, because if you're a big businessman and a big leader, you're used to being able to tell people, you do this, and then it gets done. In politics, it's not quite like that. It's more, you know, there's...
How is it?
You've got to know where all the kind of, you know, the groups are. You've got to know who's going to push back. You've got to be quite an operator. And I think...
It seems wildly inefficient.
Yes, it is. It is. And I think, you know, I think the whole Doge thing was a good idea. We should do it here.
Moving on to a topic that's very close to your heart is the war in Ukraine. During your time as Prime Minister, you were the first world leader to visit Ukraine. You led what's now dubbed the Coalition of the Willing. What, in your mind, does peace ultimately look like in Ukraine?
I hope that peace will look like, I mean, I don't know what the exact geography of Ukraine will be. I hope that Russia will get out of as much as possible. They can be persuaded to withdraw as much as possible. I mean, they have it's pointless holding on to this land. They'll have to spend a huge amount of money remediating it, investing in it. They're better off out of it. But I hope it will involve a free, sovereign, independent Ukraine. That's the most important thing. And I think it will. And the faster we get to that solution, the better. And we need to speed up, because this war's been going on for 3.5 years. And as Donald Trump rightly says, too many people are being killed. And it can end. It should end. And you know, I would do several things to bring it to an end as fast as possible. I would, number one, I would take that. There's $300 billion of Putin's money frozen in a bank account called Euroclear in Brussels. Or maybe, you know, the biggest chunk is in that bank account. That money could be taken, unfrozen, and given to the Ukrainians in advance as a down payment on the bill the Russians will have to pay for reparations, you know, and that would be huge. That's a serious amount of money for Ukraine, 150, 200 billion, you know, so 300 billion. So that would sort them out for at least 2 years, right? Putin would look at that and he'd think, oh God, I got to keep fighting for 2 more years. Putin's economy is in a, not looking good right now. Number two, the weapons that the Ukrainians have, they should be given the permissions to send those weapons to take out the Russian bases. Now, Putin's bombing Ukrainian cities every night with drones, with missiles. They're coming from these bases in Russia. The Ukrainians should have the permission to take out those bases and do more to take out the Russian oil refineries. Number three, I think that we need to be doing more to crack down on the shadow fleet. Putin's got all these oil tankers that are breaking the sanctions. Sink them, or something should happen to them to stop this. I wouldn't. You must stay within the law. You tell people on board the boats that their time's up. They must get off. But then we should stop this. Then you've got to be tougher on the countries that are keeping Putin going by buying his oil. They're funding his war machine. And Trump has shown the way. Other countries need to do the same. For the fifth thing, you talk about the coalition of the willing. What is this argument fundamentally about? Fundamentally, the question is Ukraine part of a Russian empire, a Russian sphere of influence? Is it basically controlled from Moscow? Or is it a free country, a free democracy that can do what it wants? And so the coalition of the willing, the European ground forces, they should go now. They should go now to Ukraine. They should go to Kyiv.
Boots on the ground?
Boots on the ground now. In the safe parts of Ukraine. Most of you, I go there quite a lot. I'm sure you do. Most of Ukraine is perfectly safe to visit, right?
And what if those troops were targeted or hit by a missile? Does that risk escalation?
No. Well, you could say the same about anybody who goes to Ukraine. So send them there, doing backup, doing logistics, doing training, stuff like that, away from the front line. Under no circumstances are these guys going to be fighting, shooting against Russians. Never. That's not going to happen. So given that that is never going to happen, there's no reason why they can't go now. And the reason for sending them now is because that shows to Putin our answer to the question, what is Ukraine? We're saying Ukrainians decide now and forever who their alliances are with, which foreign troops come onto their soil, and not Moscow. Do you see what I mean? So the boots on the ground is an opportunity to clear up the ambiguity. Ukraine has suffered for too long, since 91 when it was created. It has suffered from this ambiguity. The Ukrainians want to be free. They want to be independent.
President Trump, he recently met with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Do you think, in the same way as he's done in Gaza, is Trump capable of brokering a peace in Ukraine?
Yes, if he does the things that I've mentioned, and he can, and if also I think he needs to, so like he did with Hamas and with Netanyahu, he needs to show to Putin that Trump wants Ukraine to be free. And I think once Putin understands that that's what America's real objective is, they will find a way through. They will sort it out.
There are some corners of the world, particularly online, that say perhaps a Russian victory may be inevitable simply due to the size comparison of the countries. How do you respond to that?
But Russia is losing. I mean, honestly, they've been saying that Ukraine is going to be conquered for 3 years, and Russia has still taken less than 20% of Ukrainian territory, and half of Russia's oil refineries are now out of action, quite a big proportion, 30-40% are out of action. They have terrible problems, and this is Ukraine doing this to them. They need a way out of this thing. They're not going to conquer the whole of Ukraine. They need a solution, and it'd be the best thing for Putin. Putin, he controls the media. He can say, "I've won." He can say, "I've cleared all the Nazis out of Ukraine. That's it. Voila. And no more Nazis." I mean, there never were any Nazis, but you can say that. And get the thing over with. I think Trump is in a position to put pressure on Putin. I really do.
I'll just end at the...
And other people have got to back. But the Europeans, we've all got to support Trump in exerting more pressure. America can't do it on its own.
And I'd just like to end our time, Boris, with a quote about legacy from your great idol, Sir Winston Churchill. He said, "History shall be kind to me, for I intend to write it." What will be the legacy of Boris Johnson?
I'm proud of having given my country back, or helped to give my country back, its constitutional legal independence. That was the thing I was elected to do. I think that it was also important that we, because of that freedom, we were able to vaccinate people. I know you may worry about vaccinations, but we vaccinated people more quickly than any other European country, more than virtually any other country in the world. And so we came out of lockdowns faster. I'm also proud that the UK was able to work to ensure the freedom of another European country, and that Ukraine was not crushed. It's the battle, the fight is still not over, but at least we helped to avert a catastrophe in the first few weeks and months. I think there's a few other things, but it's quite enough to be going on with. I think constitutional legal independence is important.
Boris Johnson, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.